All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. We still got a few people joining, but we'll go ahead and get started and get this underway. Again, thank you for joining today. This is a presentation put on by Winslow Technology Group and Cisco Meraki. I am Ryan Deppy. I'm joined by my good friend Robin from the Cisco Meraki team. We'll be walking through this presentation today and discussing how we're going to elevate your network infrastructure with Cisco Meraki and Winslow Technology Group. So let's just jump right into it. Let's go through the agenda a little bit today, little housekeeping items. First and foremost, before we begin the presentation, if you do have questions as we're going along, please feel free to throw them into the chat window. We'll have people keeping an eye on those. If we have time at the end, which we hope we will, we'll try to get some of those questions. If for some reason we don't, they will be documented and we'll reach out to you to answer after the presentation is over. So our presentation today will go over real quick, just a real overview of Winslow Technology Group. And then Robin and I will kind of tag team on a discussion of Cisco Meraki's cloud managed network product and how that can make your life so much easier when it comes to managing your network. And then lastly, as we just stated, we'll do a little Q&A at the end as time allows. All right, so all that said, let's get started here. So a quick overview of Winslow Technology Group. We are headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts. We are an IT solutions provider. We cover everything from the data center to the desktop. In addition to having our headquarters in Waltham, we do have physical offices in New York City, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Washington, DC. Our mission here at Winslow is to deliver successful outcomes through our passion and expertise with our customers. Having been in the business for over 20 years now, well, we take pride in being our customers' trusted advisor, giving you unparalleled expertise and as much passion as possible to deliver successful outcomes for you and your technology needs. A little bit about Winslow and our partnership with Cisco. We are a premier integrator partner and master services select provider. We do actively participate in the Cisco Small and Medium Business Advisory Board, and we do have the ability to sell and procure stuff in the federal space, which is important for several of our DoD customers. We do have the options to set you up with enterprise agreements, if that is something you would like to discuss. And as you can see by the list of certifications on the screen, we have lots of expertise within the Cisco space itself. So, that wraps up our little overview about Winslow. Now let's get into the meat of the presentation here. We're going to go have a quick story here about the days of networking gone by, right? Myself, I've been in the networking world for well over 25 years now. Things have changed significantly since then, and we'll walk through a little bit of story to kind of understand what that means, and then ultimately how Meraki can change your path going forward. So again, a little story about what I like to refer as old school networking. Old school in my view. Some of you may still be doing that today, and that's okay. And we'll hope to kind of convince you to change that by the end of the presentation today. So, you know, when I started networking and when I was doing networking, this was my centralized management, right? I had a secure CRT screen with a whole bunch of different networking devices on there, and everything was SSH. You know, PuTTY was your friend, whether it was Telnet, SSH to connect to your devices. There really wasn't a great centralized management interface for you to manage, in my case, hundreds of different networking devices, whether they be wired or wireless. Network diagramming was always entertaining, right? You kind of had to put those together all on your own. There really wasn't an easy way to do that because of, you know, lack of centralized management, lack of visibility. Maybe you were lucky enough to have a network monitoring solution that was, again, unfortunately, another platform and another product that you had to manage and maintain, and you had to build on your own, right? Nothing was really automated. And once you did get information into this environment, it required constant maintenance and constant management, as well as subscription fees to keep it operational. And then as time progressed, you know, we saw some switches and some network equipment get a little better with GUI-based support. and things like that. But in my experience, those were always kind of lackluster and they didn't really have a lot of features and functionality. I think a lot of times it was just the sake of having a GUI interface to have a GUI interface. And then again, like we talked about, that may have been just your wired network. Well, how do I manage my wireless network? Well, unfortunately, that was a separate product with a whole different interface and a whole different, maybe even CLI path to manage that environment. So again, all these different systems and all these different environments to manage, nothing was cohesive. Everything looked different. It just wasn't a pleasant experience to manage a large scale network. And then obviously we had documentation that we had to worry about. You're constantly documenting information in spreadsheets and things like that. Again, just not as centralized, and doing all of that forever, managing all these environments. I have to agree with Homer. It was crazy, right? Just not a sustainable model. It's the reason that a lot of IT people start with hair and they don't end with hair, because of all these managing disparate systems. So how can we help that going forward, right? We want to move on from those old school days of networking. And we're going to talk a little bit about how Meraki can help elevate your network and make all these tasks easier. So I'm going to pass it over to my friend Robin, and he's going to kind of give you a overview of who Meraki is and how they may be able to help you manage your network environment today. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you, Ryan. So yeah, as kind of Ryan stated, I'm Robin. I'm one of the Meraki small business managers here for the Northeast. So as we move from kind of this older networking into the newer model, definitely want to start with just a little bit of a story of where Meraki started today to where we're moving towards, what we're ultimately trying to help you all with. So like to kick this off, I think just with overall mission. Overall goal of Meraki, Cisco's cloud managed division, right, is to connect passionate people, simplify their mission, ultimately also freeing up time, right, to take over different IT priorities, ultimately leaving network management on the proactive side and also up to us. So Meraki, quickly at a glance, back in 2006, whether you're new to Meraki, heard this story before, longtime customer of ours, Meraki was founded, right, by 3 grad students, MIT. This was essentially a program for Wi-Fi that they had created called RoofNet. This had essentially pioneered cloud networking into what it is today, being able to deploy, manage, control wireless access points hosted from the cloud itself. Flash forward to 2012. So this was actually when Google had actually made a big investment at the time, and then ultimately Cisco had acquired Cisco Meraki in that transaction, ultimately catapulting where Meraki is today, right? So you take the leader in networking, now introduce the cloud side of the house. Fast forward to today, Meraki's doing around 50–60% of Cisco's overall business, even from a cloud perspective. Around 2017 was around when we started to introduce cameras and sensors into the portfolio. We'll touch on a little bit more here in a little bit on the overall platform itself. So from the expansion from access points to switches to firewalls, Meraki started to dip into the physical security space and is a bread and butter for us even today, whether you're a facilities manager, network admin, so forth and so on. And then lastly, we're working with all customers from the smallest to the largest of like a Starbucks to the mom and pops. We're happy to help anyone. And then ultimately Meraki's platform is built to free up time, keep it simple, whether you're an IT manager, maybe working in HR, plugging in a box, it's very simple to use. So over 5 million plus networks today, 16 million plus devices. And then we work with a very robust API ecosystem team as well, where you can take some of our products also to the next level with a lot of different API hooks and API calls too. Next slide, Ryan. Awesome. Touched on this a little bit, but here is the overall Meraki platform. So I think what makes Meraki powerful, right, is the platform itself. So the example I kind of always give with this is you could be an IT admin, say in Japan, maybe with sites in Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, you name it. You get access to the Meraki dashboard, right, which is essentially the portal that you'll be managing everything from with just a GUI-based login. Get in there, you're able to see all your sites across different countries, locations, so forth and so on. So getting into the overall portfolio, right, of course, starting with access, and we'll kind of just move across here. So Wi-Fi, of course, will be some of the bread and butter. Of course, Meraki started on that. Meraki switching, so whether it's an 8-port switch to your large 48 ports, we have switching of all sizes. Our mobile device management, so think of your mobile irons of the world. Meraki has a full-blown MDM that's built into the dashboard itself. What makes also this powerful, right, is this is all managed on that single pane of glass. You don't need to be hopping from portal to portal when it comes to managing of any of this gear. Moving on to network security, right? So security and SD-WAN. So this is Meraki's security appliance, Meraki's firewall today, as we call it. So I would say that's kind of at the core of what Meraki does, because as we start to integrate other Cisco technologies, some of the ones that are listed even here on the right, whether it's Cisco Umbrella, Cisco AMP, Duo, and so forth, the integrations into the Meraki MX is what makes it that one powerful firewall today. Cellular gateways, so think of this similar to the Cradle Points of the world today. Meraki's MG gateway, you're able to put a SIM card into that. The example I kind of always give with this too is during peak COVID times, we used to throw these, stay on top of a school bus. Customers or the students could come right near that bus, connect to it. We use these a lot for if you're, say, setting up like a fair or need just quick Wi-Fi on the spot, and then you're able to also link that back with the Meraki MX at the front, right? So you're able to protect network applications, users throughout. Moving on to the IoT portfolio, right? So cameras, sensors itself. So Meraki cameras, fully cloud managed in that same portal. So, and with that, we also give what we call a Meraki Vision portal. So you're able to kind of take your cameras to the next level, see maybe if there's intruders coming in, or maybe you want to point it at a gate. Meraki cameras are cloud managed, and then also sensors. So these could be water leak, these could be temperature sensors, opening, closed door. And the biggest part I like to touch on, especially with the sensors, is the alerting, right? So for example, you're able to pair a sensor with a camera. Maybe Ryan's walking into one of the MDF closets. You're able to see what time he entered. The camera gets triggered. Now you get alerted, whether it's a text message, through the app, through the portal itself. Again, taking a proactive approach even to the physical security. And then lastly, right, API calls. So an example of this too, especially with our cameras, we have a different API partners that you're able to connect with. We can connect you with. Ultimately, maybe you want to track how many people are sitting in a certain area of your location. If it's like a retail location, maybe how often people are passing by. A lot of cool different things you can do with the gear, take it to the next level. Lastly, I'll end on this. We want to keep things efficient, simple, flexible. I think that's what makes Meraki the most powerful. Awesome. So scaling with Meraki. So as you guys start to grow, as you expand, I know a lot of customers have multiple locations. Meraki makes it very simple to deploy, implement, then lastly monitor the gear, right? So like I touched on a little bit on the platform slide, Meraki's is a very plug and play solution. You order Meraki gear, kind of comes in the box. You actually have that kind of zero touch provisioning. We're able to do configurations before the gear shows up on site, plugs in, right, finish out the rest of the configuration. So what I'm getting at that is it's very scalable, whether it's one access point or you're trying to look to deploy 150 across multiple different stores, multiple different locations. Very simple interface to use, right? It's very user friendly. I'm not like Ryan, like an engineer, but I am obviously just on the sales side. And if I can navigate the Meraki platform, I know a lot of other people can too. It's built around security, right? Whether that's Umbrella built in, Secure Connect as we have today, visibility analytics. And then lastly, the goal for this, right, is for your operations to get better, performance to get better. If someone's Wi-Fi is down or maybe there's an issue with the switch, we want to make sure with Meraki, you guys are alerted, you're able to troubleshoot that live in the dashboard without possibly even to get on site there.
Sure. Yeah, and one thing too I'll add here, Robin, is we're talking about the Meraki dashboard and the ease of management and operational ability. I think one thing that's good to call out, right, is the ability for Meraki products to have that true zero touch deployment model, right? So I can place an order for hardware. whether it's wireless or switching or SD-WAN appliance, whatever that may be. And after that order is placed and I get the serial numbers for those devices, while the device is still being shipped, I can go into the Meraki dashboard, I can claim those devices, and I can start the configuration while the devices themselves are still in the truck on the way to their location, right? So now my ability to quickly spin up this hardware is exponentially easier, because now I can configure everything ahead of time. When the gear shows up to the location, I can be there myself to plug it in, or I can walk someone through plugging the gear in. As long as the internet is working correctly, away you go. The gear, as soon as it reaches the Meraki dashboard, it onboards itself, pulls down the configuration that I have set, and away you go. It's really that straightforward.
That's spot on. And I think, Ryan, that also just touches on too quickly just our licensing model, right? So every pair of Meraki gear, so say you have one piece of hardware, an access point, you'll need an active license. So Ryan had touched on there's enterprise agreements. We have a Meraki subscription model today, and then ultimately our code term. But with that license, right, what you get is access to the Meraki dashboard, 24/7 hour support, warranty, right? So even next day hardware, there are ways to get 2-hour, 4-hour SLAs. And then lastly, like any firmware upgrade. So as Meraki firmware starts to get better, as gear starts to progress, that will update, and it's very scalable and very easy to use when it comes to the licensing. And that license key is essentially what's claimed into the dashboard paired to the hardware for it to operate. Awesome. All righty. Well, just a few little stats here when it comes to, of course, transforming and moving towards a cloud managed Meraki model. So you can see here, right? Not going to call all these out, but the third one particularly, I think, is the one that customers resonate the best with. And if you make that investment in Meraki, you're going to get a lot of time back in your day. So around 94% when it comes to time savings. And then even the amount of time that's saved in cost is around 84%. It has been up around 84% when it came to using our Meraki platform. So hopefully what you're taking from this is ease of use, simplicity. It's take that proactive approach to management, and ultimately it's going to free up time in your guys' day for IT directors, admins, whoever is managing that network. Ryan, anything else to add here?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Robin. Like, one of the things that I think sometimes we as network engineers don't put a real value or dollar amount on is our time, right? We have a finite amount of time to accomplish tasks, and there's a cost associated with that time. If you don't start to kind of put value on your time and understand what that means to you and to your business, it becomes difficult to really gauge how much work you can do and the value that you're adding. So when you see these numbers about saving time, it really does kind of add to the value of the product, right? With everything being in one centralized location, one dashboard, you can see everything very, very easily. It frees your time up away from kind of the day-to-day firefighting, network management stuff, to where you can now use your skill set and abilities to add value to your business in other locations, whether it's projects or other IT transformation initiatives.
Awesome. And one thing I'll touch on, Ryan, before I'll dive into this slide too, is any of this gear at Meraki, you're able to free trial, right? So if you have a new site that's coming up, say you want to try a Meraki switch, a firewall, an access point, reach out to Winslow, reach out to me, right? We can get that outfitted for you. Those do work on 30-day trials based on proof of concepts. If you need more time, we're always happy to work with you. What's great about all that gear is it's brand new gear. So if you have it in production, you do want to purchase it, we can quickly work together, right? Get that going so you don't have any disruptions. Don't want the gear, you send it back, and we will always provide a free label for you. So something to keep in mind, and it's a way to test out the gear before you buy it. But alrighty, well, kind of wrapping up around just overall Meraki story foundation here. Touched on this a few times, but it's built around security, right? As we move towards these hybrid environments, people working from home, applications in the cloud, applications hosted at the data center, maybe at a colo, we want to make sure things are secure. So with Meraki, if you make this investment today, you are able to expand into some of these other technologies, right? So like Thousand Eyes, another Cisco acquisition, getting that full observability when it comes to your network, has a lot of cool features, especially like internet outages that may be happening. So, hey, maybe it's something going on with the ISP, not necessarily the network, or maybe it's something going on with the network, not the ISP. Thousand Eyes gives you a lot of visibility into that. Cisco Duo for authentication, Cisco Secure Access, and then Umbrella, right, can all be integrated over the top into the Meraki MX. Ultimately as well, Secure Connect, similar to our Secure Access product, can also be integrated. And then this is backed by our world-class Talos Cisco organization, right? Petabytes and petabytes of data that this team is overseeing, 24/7 hour team. So not only are you making the investment in Meraki, you're getting this investment in Cisco security to back you up, ultimately, hopefully, alleviating some of the pains and things that come to network management in the day-to-day. Anything else on the security front, Ryan?
Yeah, and just to touch on Cisco Talos a little bit too, right? I always like to throw this out there because I think it speaks volumes about the robustness of the product and the solution, right? So Cisco Talos, if you don't know, like Robin said, that's their cybersecurity arm. And they are the largest privately held security company in the US outside of the NSA. So if you think about that for a minute, that shows you the power of the security platform and solutions behind Talos. It's a pretty impressive opportunity. So okay, so what we're going to do here, we got a few minutes to kind of go through this. We're just going to talk about a few key products and new initiatives that are coming from Cisco Meraki. Some of them released just within the last week or so. Others just to kind of touch on, to make sure we're staying up to speed with other competitors in the market. So one of the newest releases here is their MS150 switch. This is a new entry into the Meraki portfolio that brings in kind of a, for lack of a better term, an entry-level layer 2 switch, but also adds the flexibility of higher PoE wattage, multi-gig port support, as well as bringing in overall more power into the environment. It still has backplane stacking in this environment, which is key to that kind of access layer switching model. You may have multiple switches in your network closet and you want to stack them together to manage them as one entity. You can still do that with these backplane stacking ports and not take up those valuable front plane ports, for whether it's 10 gig or 1 gig, depending on the model that you may buy. And although these switches are layer 2, they will support kind of basic static routing if you do want to have a little bit of layer 3 capabilities on that. So you can see here kind of this is the portfolio a little bit within the kind of where Meraki is going from a switching standpoint. Again, we just talked about the MS150. The MS130 was kind of a predecessor to that, a little bit lower PoE wattage, but again has that fully cloud managed capability, as well as multi-gig ports. And the interesting part for those of you that have been familiar with Cisco for a long time, over the past few years, Cisco and Meraki have been working closely together to integrate Catalyst switching into the Meraki dashboard, meaning that their Catalyst switching will be able to be fully managed from the Meraki dashboard. That is already happening with the Catalyst 9300 series, and that entire family is now able to be fully managed and purchased as a quote-unquote Meraki-fied switch. Several other switching lines, including the 9200L, you can now onboard from the existing Catalyst environment. You can now onboard that into the Meraki dashboard to be able to manage it. There are other switch models out there, such as the 9500 series, which you can also have in your Meraki dashboard, but that is currently at a monitor-only state, with additional enhancements coming to that portfolio in the near future. And one thing that we did want to call out as we kind of try to wrap this up here a little bit, Wi-Fi 7 is the latest buzz in the Wi-Fi market. Cisco is all over that, right? They have released their unified access points to support that, meaning unified being meaning it can work with your existing kind of on-prem WLCs if you're kind of still in that model, but they will also be ready to be completely fully managed within the Meraki cloud. Again, these are a single SKU product, a global use AP, so you don't have to worry about ordering a specific AP based on your country code. You can order one access point and then be ready to go either on-prem or in the cloud. And just a quick overview of the access points that were released. Mostly, as you can see here, the biggest thing to call out with Wi-Fi 7, right, is the throughput devices, the throughput capabilities of these new access points. If you look at those, right, two of them have single 10 gig interface cards on them, whereas the 9178i there on the far right, dual 10 gig capabilities. That just speaks to the throughput that Wi-Fi 7 is capable of achieving. And again, remember, if you're talking about a Wi-Fi 7 deployment, that's something that Winslow can certainly help you with, because we want to make sure you prepare yourself accordingly for that. It does require significantly more power, more throughput, things like that. So your Wi-Fi refresh may turn into a switch refresh as well, right, to be able to fully support that that new Wi-Fi 7 portfolio. So keep that in mind. Again, Wi-Fi 7 certified access points from Meraki ready to go, fully orderable today. All right, I think that wraps up everything. Kind of next steps, what can you do as a customer that may be interested in Cisco Meraki? First and foremost, get in touch with us here at Winslow. We're happy to help you have a Meraki discussion in anything along those lines. Certainly help them with that. Robin kind of touched on the second one. Meraki is very, very open and helpful with doing free trials of any of their products. Their try and buy opportunity is really a great way to test out the gear. And you can even have free trials of the dashboard, right? If you just want to poke around in there and see what the dashboard is all about, you can certainly do that there. Lots of documentation and webinars online, right on Meraki's website that kind of show product overviews and customer success stories. And then there's a very robust end user community within the Meraki community that is a great source of information as well. So that kind of wraps it up. Let's see if we have some questions here to go over. One of the questions is, have we eliminated the console login requirement for some admin actions? Some, yes, and I think you will still see a little bit. Most of the Meraki devices still have some sort of local admin with a very limited amount of changes that you can make. What a lot of that boils down to is if you still want to set static IP addresses on your switches or on your firewalls or things like that, that is currently still done with that local admin page within the Meraki device. But mostly everything else, if you're just running a full DHCP model in your environment where you're not necessarily worried about your gear getting static IP addresses right out of the gate, public or private IP addresses, then there's really no reason for you to have to plug into the device other than get it uplinked on the internet and let it check into the dashboard. Similar question, can I throw away all my console cables? Absolutely. It's certainly getting to that point, right? Do I keep one around just in case? Sure, of course I do, because I'm a network engineer and I like to be prepared for all scenarios. But we're getting closer and closer to that point where having that console access is just not going to be required, right? At least as it relating to the Meraki environment itself. You can still operate your Catalyst switches in kind of CLI mode if you choose to do so, then yes, you would need your console cable for that. But as far as Meraki is concerned, we're moving on from that and moving to that centralized cloud management. So I think, scrolling through here, I don't see any other questions at this point. We're right at the top of the hour. So I want to make sure we give everybody some time back to enjoy the remainder of their day. Robin, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
No, I think you nailed it. I would just say too, you work with Winslow, you get also access to Cisco too. So from our engineers to Ryan, we're always happy to help with any pre-design network assessments, taking an overall look. So reach out. And then lastly too, Wi-Fi 7, MS-150s, now's a great time to take advantage of some Meraki promotions going around these as well. So if you are looking to refresh this year, let us know. We can also delay ship gear up to 90 days. We can get creative with financing. So we're here to help. Thank you again for joining, and we will send out the recording. That's all I got.
Yep,
Thank
thank
you.
you, everyone.